Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Zoe Dean-Smith. I'm Vice President of the Leadership and Social Impact Department at Vital Voices, and very happy to be with you all today. Very excited about our discussion that we're going to have this morning on e-commerce and digital transformation. As many of us will have seen in the past year during COVID, a lot of businesses have had to switch pretty dramatically. And we are very, very excited to have three fabulous Vital Voices women with us this morning to talk about how they've managed to really amplify their work in the e-commerce and digital transformation space. So with great pleasure, I'm going to hand over the mic to my colleague, my fabulous colleague, Gina Podesta, to introduce our great panelists.
Thank you, Zoe, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I am so excited to introduce our panelists, who are all fabulous, amazing women who are going to, for sure, share some amazing tidbits of their experience, recommendations, and some of their perspective on this topic that we know is top of mind to so many. So let me start by introducing Khulan Davaadorj. She's a social entrepreneur, public speaker, and mentor. She is the founder of Lebo, Mongolia's first ever organic skincare brand. Their vision is to create positive change and economic growth for Mongolia and Asia. We also have with us Lebo Biko, a seasoned strategy and marketing specialist with over 22 years of strategy development and implementation experience. She is a co-founder and director of Oya, a holding company that provides solutions to help advance and grow women-owned and managed businesses across the continent. She is also the co-founder of Womenomics Africa, the nonprofit arm of Oya that connects Pan-African women to opportunities and ecosystems. And last but not least, we also have with us our dear Lorena Diaz Quijano, a specialist in digital transformation and digital business. She is a trainer in digital business, digital transformation, and remote work for in-company programs at Digital House, the largest coding school in Latin America. She's also a co-developer of their digital talent program. As a specialist in digital transformation, she has advised many large companies, including Mondelez, EY, Visa, just to mention a few. Thank you very much for all of you for joining us. We're so excited to have you all here. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you all. So we're actually going to just jump right in. And I'd like to start with you, Khulan, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, as a trailblazer in both the beauty industry and entrepreneur, you're constantly innovating and adapting. And I'm sure all the experiences that you had to go through as a result of COVID were not an exception. I'm sure this was a pattern within your entrepreneurial journey as well. Can you please share with us how you relied on e-commerce to pivot and adapt to the changing environment and all of the challenges that came about?
Yes, thank you so much, Eugenia, and hello to everybody around the world. So obviously with us, manufacturing seems to be very, very far away from the digital talk that we're having nowadays. But in fact, we actually have to do this transformation as well and really be spot on in order to survive, first of all, in this crazy world. And second of all, also be a leader and be innovative. So especially during the COVID times, Mongolia had almost 3 national lockdowns where our physical stores were closed. We still had to pay rent and we couldn't go anywhere. So obviously there was perfect timing for us to really work on our, e-commerce, especially on our social media presence. And even if we are in lockdown, taking it to the other level and making sure that everybody understands that we still are there, even though we, for example, cannot physically work. So that was actually nothing really new to us, because as an entrepreneur, we were really using social media as our main marketing. And that was just perfect because traditionally, big companies, for example, use TV advertisements, etc. But as an entrepreneur, you don't really have the budget to go that big. And you can actually use social media to your advantage to really get out there and get the word out. So for us, COVID really took us to the other level and made sure that we were on track with e-commerce. And actually, during the COVID times, we were able to then, for example, decrease our expenses, literally, close our big physical stores, start concentrating on e-commerce, and that really balanced out our revenue. So it really gave us a big opportunity to balance out our revenue and not really lose out on opportunities. So we were really able to start our sales on the website. It grew in the last 2 years, and it really, helped us survive during this time.
That's fascinating, Khulan. I wonder if, do you envision that when all of these changes happen, did you already envision doing all of this and making some of these changes? And what you're saying is basically it was all accelerated as a result of the reality? Or is it something that you ended up discovering new pathways within your business as a result of having to for survival?
Well, we did see the benefits of delivery, for example, through our e-commerce, as well as using social media, for example, Instagram as our sales channel. And we did see, for example, Facebook as a huge sales channel, because it really gives us the opportunity to also interact with people, because a lot of people, they ask us different kind of questions, they ask us to provide them pictures, etc. And it already was happening, but COVID was accelerating it and was, for us, like making sure that we are on the right track. So we did understand that e-commerce is really becoming popular, and that people in these busy days really also want to do more of e-commerce. But COVID gave us the opportunity to really make sure that we are on the track.
Fascinating, fascinating. I'm going to actually turn over to Lebo, because I think there is a thread here, right? In your organization, Womenomics, Lebo, you've done some amazing work facilitating and researching how women can participate more meaningfully in the economy. Can you tell us more about the virtual campus Womenomics you recently launched in 2021, and how you've helped women entrepreneurs adapt to the digital space and access new markets?
Yeah. Hi, thank you, Gina, and thank you to everybody. Hello to everybody from across the world. I think that's one thing that this digital environment that we live in has allowed us to do, is be able to have conversations and engagements like this and be able to connect with people beyond our own borders that we wouldn't have been able to do that before. So thank you very much for the opportunity and to share a bit of my journey. So as you said, yes, Womenomics was founded as an organization really to be able to facilitate accelerated participation for women entrepreneurs across the continent. I think when Rehema and I started, my business partner and I started Womenomics, even when it was a concept many moons ago, when there was the Africa Rising narrative, we realized that women were actually not part of that narrative. And we're talking about fastest growing economies, and we're like, but where are the women? Where are they as part of the conversation, but also where are they in driving what success actually looks like? And we knew right at the beginning then that digital and technology was going to play a very big role, particularly as we believed that we wanted women to trade across the continent, but we were also excited about the fact that we wanted women to trade with each other. We believe strongly that when women do work together, it's exponential, there's exponential growth. So way back then, I think as far back as about 2012, we already knew that technology was going to play a role. We just didn't know how. And we knew that we use technology in our individual capacities, in our personal capacities, a little bit in our business capacities. I think then LinkedIn was kind of booming, but wanted to say, how do you translate that into business? How do you make sure that that can actually begin to accelerate this participation, which for us is really dollar in the pocket, right? Not just women as laborers, but actually that they are contributing to GDP and they're actually extracting value. And so the journey for us from a digital perspective, like many organizations, I think was catapulted by COVID, which really forced us to kind of think about how do we create this engagement that we are wanting to make sure that we're continuing on the journey of Womenomics. And Womenomics exists to do three things, which is really what we've translated into a digital campus, which is connecting women to information and insights around where the opportunities are for them to participate on the continent and in other markets beyond their own. It's about connecting them to an ecosystem, so particularly with the focus of access to markets and access to capital, because we know that's what's very important in making sure that women can participate meaningfully. And the third is around saying, once I've enticed you with a great opportunity beyond your borders, and I've said to you, hey, here's a funder, or here's a multinational that's willing to work with you in their value chain, often we find that women don't have the right skills and capacity to be able to participate. And so it's about saying, how do we connect them to the skills, the capacity, to the training? And last year we had the fortuitous opportunity to host TEDx. So my partner is a TEDx licensee, and of course with COVID, we can't be in a studio, we can't do the thing to do, and we're able to come across a technology, piece of technology that really allowed us to, one, connect people to be able to deliver their talks globally, obviously, as we're doing now, but also to be able to mimic a TEDx environment. But secondly, we were then able to pilot this thing, which allowed us to actually allow women to exhibit their businesses in 3D, which was awesome, right? So they were able to come in, create 3D exhibition stands, and where women were limited previously to a geography of being able to access partners and clients. Now we had women saying to us, you know what, wow, I'm sitting in Johannesburg in my home. I've got this wonderful 3D exhibition. I've been able to upload all my information about my business, what I do, you know, and my contact details. I'm having meetings with people in London. I'm having meetings with people in the US. And we thought, wow, this is awesome, right? Because this is really about saying how to do that. And so we decided to then invest in a platform that really allows us to do that 365. So the Womenomics Virtual Campus is really about creating, I think Mark Zuckerberg calls it a metaverse, right? Which is really around saying a digital ecosystem that is really about connecting women to information and insights in the form of events, in the form of boot camps that we run around being able to have and be able to drive their businesses across the continent. It is about connecting them to an ecosystem. So we launched it in June 2021, so about 3 months ago. And we're fortunate to be able to partner with UN Women in that journey of generation equality and having their events. So we're able to have information, insights for women to be able to participate in that space. And so we're on a journey to actually build that ecosystem to make sure that we've got the right partners that can participate. We've got Department of Trade and Industry from South Africa, which helps with marketing and trade and so forth. And the third piece is around saying we're helping them with skills and to be able to participate meaningfully. So the digital campus is around that. It's about saying, how do we make sure that there's a vibrant community that we have that is timeless, i.e. it is not restricted by time, because I can be talking to you now while other people might be going to sleep, that allows them to showcase their businesses to people that are not sitting next to them, but in different parts of the world, actually, so not even a continent. And thirdly, that we're able to share with them and facilitate training for them that allow them to be able to succeed successfully. So that's what we've done over the last 2 months, and we're on a journey. There's testing and learning, and I think we're going to talk a bit about some of the challenges and really around, you know, there's a lot that we're learning as we're going through it, and so are the women as they're coming on this journey of how they need to exist and be in an environment, so in a digital environment, so that they can be as successful.
Wow, well, congratulations. What a tremendous feat, and what a wonderful opportunity for women on the continent. I really applaud you and look forward to learning more about all that you're doing. I can't imagine what that journey's been like.
Interesting.
Yeah, I bet. We'll be able to dig in. I can't wait. So Lorena, turning to you now, you know, you played an important role in expanding e-commerce in Latin America, right? While at Mercado Libre, the largest e-commerce company in the region. And then in your role as well as executive director of the Argentinian e-commerce chamber, where you introduced and organized the first Cyber Monday in Latin America. Imagine that. How have you seen digital transformation and e-commerce evolve throughout your career? You've been such a champion for as long as we've known you. What does that journey look like, and how have you seen things transform?
Okay, thank you, Gina, and Zoe for the invitation, for being here and to share this with Lebo and Khulan. It's a pleasure. Especially we met Lebo in 2010, so thanks to the internet and the digital world, we are together again, so it's amazing. As we can't meet in person as we normally used to to arrange things like that. So, and hello to everyone. So of course, it's been, as Lebo says, it's been an amazing journey these last 20 years, which is a lot, but not that much. So for any industry, you know that 20 years is not that much, but it's been amazing how we've seen e-commerce evolve. In terms of women, of course, at the very beginning, I was almost alone, especially in Argentina, but of course there were like some others for sure. But what I've seen and what I try to measure and then share with the market, and I shared that at the United Nations in Geneva for the e-commerce week 2 years ago, is that I measure e-commerce and to understand how women have impact and have participated in e-commerce. So the good news is that you know that for software developers, only 10% of all software developers are women. But in e-commerce, luckily, 50% of the people working on e-commerce in Latin America and in Argentina especially, it's women. So, which is a huge opportunity for women if we know that we can participate in many ways. We can participate in the commerce part, in the logistic and supply, I don't know, customer service, marketing. There's a lot of things to do on e-commerce, and there's a huge opportunity for women to develop and to do money or to make a living or to grow their business. So that's one part. And the other is that I've been working with I've been in meetings there in the United Nations e-commerce week with some banks, and they discovered that women-owned SMEs are more alike to do digital business than business led by men. So especially for SMEs. So again, we have like an opportunity, and we are like, we like digital and we feel more comfortable in digital apparently, and we have a huge opportunity there too. So it's like trends and opportunities that are amazing and great for women. That's in terms of women perspective related to e-commerce. So huge opportunity, again, take advantage and be there, be prepared, and we are here to support. That's the main thing. The second one is more focused on the digital perspective that you asked, Gina, is of course, it took a lot of time to grow. It took much more than expected. So it was like when you think about all the e-commerce which has been done before COVID, only 3% of all the retail sales were online in Latin America. Only 3% of all the sales of the retail sales. So it's been very, very small before COVID. So some businesses and some verticals grew until 14 or maybe 20% of the total sales, which is still very small. It grew a lot, but it's still, there's still a lot of opportunity to keep on growing. Now the most important thing, as Khulan said, and Lebo also said something about that, is that we luckily we have the payment system developed, we have the logistics system developed in most of the countries. Of course, for example, in Central America, it's more complicated. I'm working with the State Department and with Sempromipe, which is an organization developing SMEs in the region to develop e-commerce there with a very strength focus on women and how to help women to develop e-commerce in the region. And there's still a lot of opportunity to develop very good payment systems, and especially logistics. Even if there are some companies doing that, it's still very expensive for the region, especially if they want to sell abroad, and then to bring the money to the region is still very complicated. They need like 3 systems in a way to have the money back in the region. So still a lot of opportunity, a lot of things to learn. Of course, as Khulan said, the pandemic made it grow incredible from 3% to 14 or 20 or 30 in some cases, but it's still a lot of opportunity to get in, and especially taking advantage of the social media, as Khulan said, which is a little easier to implement and faster. So we have a lot to share during today. So in those terms, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a great start to this conversation, and so fascinating to hear the different ways that the world has been evolving. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, you know, for example, we're having this right now in our digital transformation of, here we are sitting on Zoom with you, Lorena, in Spain, Khulan in Mongolia, Lebo in South Africa, and Gina and I in 2 different parts of the US. Probably 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have thought that this would be how we'd be doing our daily business. So Lebo, you were talking a little bit earlier about, you touched on the challenges that we face, that women entrepreneurs have faced in the digital space. Can you share some of the challenges that you've seen working with the women entrepreneurs that you're connecting across the African continent?
Thank you, Zoe. Yes, I think what we've got to learn for ourselves is almost the practical illustration and the practical experience of, I think, what has been written quite a bit in many reports around this digital gender divide, right? Which exists around this digital divide, which is then exacerbated by overlaying a gender lens onto it. And I think particularly on the continent in Africa, even in South Africa, for instance, we know that even though we are growing quite quickly as sub-Saharan Africa in terms of our digitalization, we still are remaining quite far behind. And I think they say that the world's population, I think it was OECD that did a report that said that only 40% of the world's population actually has access to the internet, and most of the people that don't have access are actually on the continent, on the African continent. And I think even so, there was a study that was done that talks about the fact that from a woman's perspective, it's only 27% of them that actually have access to the internet, and of those 27%, only 15% actually use it and use it correctly, which is quite a jarring statistic, which I think then we became very alive to in the work that we're doing. And I think we are grateful for the partnership that we had with UN Women as we got off the starting blocks for the virtual campus, because in their mandate and in their endeavor to make sure that they are accessible and their programs that they're developing are accessible to a dynamic and a diverse population of women, including rural women, etc. We found ourselves a bit challenged actually in that space as well. And I think for us, it was really around access. And access became a big issue for us. And access, particularly one, we found we had this wonderful campus that we'd put together. And as we were developing programs and as we were trying to make sure that they were more widely accessible, we found that, wow, the women that actually would be able to benefit from some of this work that we're doing don't have access for simple, for hardware, right? So let's even talk about hardware. That's the ability to have a laptop and a mobile device that can actually give you access to the internet so that you can access a platform. And our platform exists both in 3D and in 2D. So 3D as a virtual reality downloadable app, but in 2D as a web-based like this, right? So if you can do Zoom, you are able to you're able to get onto the campus, but women didn't have access to that kind of stuff. Infrastructure became a big issue, right? So access to the infrastructure, just being able to have access to a place where you can have sound, stable internet, right? Which they didn't have access to. And I think the report that I was mentioning earlier, the OECD report, talks about the fact that you have so much of the African population, and many of them live as far as 50 kilometers from fiber. 50 kilometers, I think that's like 30 miles, from fiber. Now you don't even access that. So we know that access was a big thing. And then there was also access. So once, even if you had the laptop and you had potentially the phone to access, just access to things like data. So I remember anecdotally, we had women that were joining some of our sessions, and the one woman wrote in the chat like we have now. So she said, you know what, I really, really love the session that you've got, but I have to log off now because I've run out of data. I've run out of airtime. So I actually have to go. So that became a big issue for us, right, to kind of talk about. And it starts talking to us as we're thinking about going forward, that even though we had we had kind of begun to play in a particular part of the value chain of technology, we're actually having to think about how do we play along the entire value chain so that we are talking to other ecosystem partners about making sure that they can provide access to data to women and that the infrastructure makes us access to devices. Those are the kind of conversations we were having to have as we were driving things. And then I think the third thing, which we found quite interesting, actually, we didn't quite expect it, but it was there. It's linked to access to skills, which we know is an issue. So women, particularly, the reports always talk about the fact that they don't participate in digital solutions because they don't have the skills. So you need to upskill them. But there was also an issue around confidence and attitude just to actually do it, just to be able to participate in it. And often the lack of patience to do so. So we were coming in with a new technology. We were coming in with something new that people had not been had used before, but we found both from the women themselves and even from clients, just this lack of patience to be able to walk a journey into a new field, in a new world, into saying it's something new. I need to have the patience to try it and to work with it. And some people were saying it doesn't work, but they hadn't even logged on to the platform, which didn't work. So I think what we found, I think definitely just supports what has been shared widely around this issue of just access for women, just being able to access the technology itself, being able to access the tools to be able to use the technology effectively, and then just the skills, really just be able to upskill them. And I think as we are thinking about how to make sure that this platform is being accessed optimally, we have to work with other people. We have to collaborate with other people in that digital value chain to solve for this. Otherwise, this gender digital divide is just going to persist. And globally, as economies, we're not going to thrive. And for the African continent, particularly, we know that we're not going to reach the potential if we don't address those issues. Yeah.
Thank you, Lebo. You just started touching on this. Can you share a couple of the solutions or what progress you're making in these areas? Because there are such real challenges, particularly, I think, in Africa, probably Latin America is fairly similar. Are you partnering with other organizations? What are the solutions that you're coming up with?
So as part of the work that we were privy to be part of with UN Women, we have I suppose a seat as part of the Action Coalition that looks at technology and innovation. So as part of that Action Coalition, there is a lot of work that is now being spearheaded now that we've had the Paris Forum and et cetera, now it's about implementation, right, towards generation equality. And so as part of that forum, part of the solutions that have been put on the table have really been around how do we work with some of the technology providers, for instance, to be able to zero rate some of these platforms, to be able to support with the provision of data, et cetera, to be able to do that. And so those are conversations that we are thinking about to say, how do we support, how do we make sure that we're able to provide the tools so that women can actually participate. But even ourselves, that as we think about it, it constantly challenges you. They always talk about that, no war strategy survives the first battle, something like that. Like, when the rubber hits the tarmac type of thing. It's when you think about it and then when you do it, often you've got to rethink how you're doing stuff. And so even as we're looking at our platform, it's really about saying, how do we make the onboarding experience even simpler, even easier, so that it's not a hard process for people to participate, so that we're contributing to that skills and being able to participate. And I think just able for women to build confidence. I mean, we have women that are on our platform in their 60s that have created avatars, and some youth don't want to do it, but she's like, Lebo, I've got an avatar. I've got my avatar. It's moving around. And we're like, okay, yes, because they have given themselves the patience and the time to do that. But I think it is a journey. It is about, being there and just making sure that we're able to build the confidence and helping to kind of build the skills. But we continue on the journey. As we said, we're like 2 months in, and it's really around saying, how do we collaborate with other people in this value chain to deal with some of these issues? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think collaboration and coalitions are a huge factor in the way we're going to move women entrepreneurs forward in so many different spaces. Moving on to you, Khulan, you talked a little bit earlier about how you are sort of expanding your markets. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you're taking your e-commerce into different markets. What are some of the challenges you're facing? And what's some of the advice that you would share with other women entrepreneurs who are just beginning this journey?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so for us, e-commerce had been the key sales channel because obviously we are Mongolia's first ever organic skincare brand. A lot of people have even no idea about Mongolia. So it is very tough to actually, for example, open up stores right away, launch, etc. So especially our distributors, they had been using social media, for example, Instagram a lot in order to get the word out, in order to really reach customers. And then they have been opening up their own websites accordingly within their country. So that has been working quite well. It was taking a lot of pressure from us because they were actually doing everything. So it was all kind of the distributor that was doing it. But then for us, for example, we started again during COVID time to have our own e-commerce platform in the US. So we launched in the US through our own website, which really gave us the opportunity to do more because we wanted to reach not just through a distributor, but we wanted to reach our customers ourselves. So having, a website like that, especially such as a platform like Shopify, it really gave us the opportunity to use those very easy functions to make an incredible website with not that much money, and then actually reach our customers through various kind of options. But then on the other hand, just like Lebo said, it really has to do a lot with the ecosystem. So for example, the reason why it was very difficult for us to actually start everything from Mongolia is because there's no, for example, payment system that could enable us to make direct sales from Mongolia, for example. So Mongolia does not have any kind of PayPal, so we actually cannot sell to a US customer right away. So things like this really, are difficult for entrepreneurs because just in order to actually make our own work happen, we now have to think about the whole ecosystem and how to actually develop the country in order to move forward. So what is happening now is there's a lot of talk, obviously, between Mongolia and various kind of, let's say, Amazon. And just recently, Amazon, for example, is enabling Mongolian brands to showcase their products. So things like this are really, really tough because as an entrepreneur, obviously, you're always doing a lot of things for the first time, even within your own country. But then there's a lot of responsibility on you in order to really make a change. So when we actually finalized everything in the US, a lot of Mongolian companies were contacting us. How did you do it? How did you do it? What were the steps? And we really, I am always open to share what is happening. So I even told them what I did in order to make it happen. So that has been, on the one hand, a great success. On the other hand, a lot of responsibility because now we have to really work together with a lot of agencies. I'm trying to really now focus on helping other SMEs to really export and go international as well, because as everybody is saying, e-commerce is really an amazing platform that enables small businesses to showcase their product to anybody in this world. And if we are able to use this opportunity wisely and actually as entrepreneurs, like we always do, try to be one step ahead of everybody else, then actually we can take it as a big opportunity. So for us, especially with our launch in the US with our e-commerce site, it enables us to really gain, for example, revenue that we are not able to gain in Mongolia because of the dollar and the Mongolian tugruk, because what we sell in Mongolia is not that much. But then if we actually can make the same sale, but in dollars, it really enables a small company like ours to have that kind of revenue. So I think for all the entrepreneurs out there, it's really all about researching. I mean, I spend a lot of time Googling. I opened up my company in the US just by Googling how to open up a company in the US. And I did it online. I didn't even have to leave my apartment or office. And then I had a company in the US. So I think really, you know, just taking it to Google, making sure that you research until, you know, there's really no limit, basically. But really take the time to research about the opportunities that are out there, especially now. Platforms such as Instagram, they're building in all these various sales functions. Facebook, for example, is now helping SMEs, you know, become a better salesperson through their page, for example, and that all these functions are for free. So literally just researching, Googling, making sure that you use all these new platforms that are coming up. And a lot of startups, for example, are now also focusing on how to help small businesses. So really taking the opportunity to research and make sure that you know what kind of you know, new things are out there, and taking the opportunity and really, you know, working on it. Because for us, we are just a small company in Mongolia, but we're literally using all these new things and competing now in the US with all these big brands. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Thank you very much. You know, as I've been listening to you, and also thinking about what I've been hearing from our team when they've been connecting with you recently, this is also a really interesting journey for you in terms of your leadership, because I know that you're now actually an official advisor to the Prime Minister of Mongolia, and helping them sort of think through how to do this kind of stuff. So really, congratulations. We're very proud of you for that. It's pretty incredible. The other thing I was thinking as you were talking was, I'm sure that your staffing has probably changed over the last couple of years through COVID, because I'm imagining the ratio of, you probably had a lot of people working on beauty products pre-COVID, and now you're having to recruit people who are really good at Instagram and Facebook. So there's probably a very different kind of ratio of staffing that you're working with now. I'd like to move over to Lorena now. Lorena, you've been working in the digital, one of your programs is Digital Talent Program. Can you share a little bit about how you've helped entrepreneurs overcome their digital barriers in this space?
Yeah, for sure. Entrepreneurs and also the big companies, because it was a huge concern about big companies and how to prepare the teams immediately because of COVID, and how to transition to digital. So it's been an amazing year last year, an intensive one, working a lot with both and to see the difference. So it's great to see how entrepreneurs, they take the lead, they take the ideas and they implement immediately, while big companies take longer and think about it and make plans, and the difference is really huge. So for me, one of the most important thing, and what I've seen is it immediately changed the way and the perspective concerning digital, is that we need to help entrepreneurs or big companies and people who has to enter the digital to understand how to make business out of the digital. How is the process and how easy it is. It's not that difficult. So, but they are very scared. Everyone who really doesn't know, who don't know exactly how to do businesses online, and they are scared because they don't know. And most of the people, they don't accept that they don't know, because as they know how to use the tools, but it's not the same to use the tools than to do business with those tools, with the telephone or with the Facebook, as Khulan was saying. So one thing is to use it as a user, and the other thing is to be a producer, to make business out of it. So once you explain how to make business, and you explain the steps they have to face, then they start losing the fear. They are not the fear anymore. They don't feel the fear anymore, and they start doing and they start implementing. But it's key what they've been saying, Lebo and Khulan, about the the environment and the ecosystem. This is key. So with the State Department and with Sempromipe, and also we did it in Argentina, not only in Latin America, it's key that the governments start taking the advice and do the laws that are needed, and they take decisions of what can help entrepreneurs and companies to do more digital. Of course, the collaboration in the industry. Can you imagine 20 years ago, we didn't have where to study, we didn't have enough cases to learn, as we are learning now from Khulan, luckily, but we didn't have the cases. So talking to each other. So if she is selling beauty and she has to talk with other women selling beauty and share numbers, figures, what happened after the campaigns, what happened after they try something on Facebook. And sometimes it's as easy as to send message through Facebook, not even to post anything. Sending messages to our contact in Facebook, telling them that we are selling online, it helps a lot. Simple as that, but we have to start, and we have to start trying. Trying is the key. So we try messages, and if it doesn't work, we talk to Khulan, we talk to Lebo. What happened? What was useful for you? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? What do you suggest for me to do with Facebook, with Instagram, with whichever, and start trying. Trying is key, and measuring, of course, always measuring. And of course, it's not only the ecosystems, because as Khulan said, if you don't have means of payment and you don't have the logistics, it's very difficult. So you need there the government, and there are, luckily, there are international organizations and NGOs helping a lot to develop that ecosystem in different countries, in different regions. So instead of being alone and feeling alone or researching alone, go and look for these kind of organizations that there's always some, maybe not in Mongolia for sure, because I know Khulan would have found them, but in other countries there are organizations, international or local organizations helping. So go to them, ask for help, and understand which organizations are trying to develop the ecosystem. So we are seeing a lot of e-commerce trade fairs where you can meet those partners for implementing the, if you want, the most difficult e-commerce, which is your own website or different kind of things, and different from what Khulan was saying. And then, of course, you have to develop the market. Countries have to develop a market. If you don't have a market, a local market, then you have to go to abroad, and maybe you don't have the ecosystem to go abroad yet. So it's very important to develop the market. So if you can help to develop the Cyber Mondays of your countries, is key to your to create a market in your country. So it's not only the entrepreneurs who will not fear anymore the digital and who will start implementing the digital, but also you need all that Khulan and Lebo were saying, that ecosystem, the laws, the system, the providers, and the market, which is key. So if you can help to develop the market, that will change a lot the game, because we've seen it in Argentina, we are seeing it in Latin America, and it's really key.
I'm going to take advantage of you, Lorena, and all your brilliance, and take it a step further, right? So in addition to all of those changes and all those actors that need to be present, what are you seeing as the opportunities for women in e-commerce? So if we think about industry, if we think about products and services, what are some of the trends that we're seeing that women probably need to pay closer attention to even consider being a part of this economy?
Yeah, for me, what is key and where we can have a huge impact is in understanding how to make business out of social media. If we understand exactly how to make money out of social media, and we help not only ourselves, but the market, and we as providers, it will be key. Because what I've seen is that maybe we train people to answer questions online, no, through Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. But we have to train people to answer to sell, not answer just to answer. If we answer to sell, then it will be key and it will change a lot. So how women can understand this and use social media as a means of selling, and how women can train other people to use social media, not only to create content just because, but to sell, it will be key for the developing of women, and also the ecosystem and how we create jobs for young people, because they love social media. So instead of helping them to create content just because it's content to sell, then I think it will be key. So content for e-commerce, which is completely different. I'm not seeing a lot of programs on that, and I think it will be very interesting to implement, because it's SMEs and entrepreneurs, they need this kind of help a lot, and they can't afford a big marketing company. And so maybe to have this kind of preparedness or train people, which it doesn't exist so far, or it's very few people doing this correctly and appropriately. So I think it would be very helpful for everyone, and cheap, more cheap.
Everything that you're saying is raising a number of just emotions, I will say, because this is a common pain that we hear time and time again, along the lines of what you mentioned as being the fear regarding the digital space. There's also just this confusion, and you see a lot of people jumping in and doing things, but not necessarily understanding why they're doing them, or them leading to an outcome of bringing in revenue, right, as you mentioned. And figuring out the best way to break that down into something concrete that entrepreneurs could take advantage of and really use to their advantage, understanding the limited resources. So I think that's the big challenge, right? We know large marketing and sales firms exist, and that support exists, but most of the small cannot afford that. So what is the alternative where you're feeling that you're actually putting your resources where it counts, and that time and that investment will lead to some return? So I love where we're going with this, and I'm going to pick your brain after this to figure out, okay, like what can be done? Because as you said, it's not being done. It's not being done. So I would love to hear from you. And I don't know if you had something else to say, Lorena.
Yeah, just one little thing, which is, I think it's also key. You don't use in the US WhatsApp as we use it in Latin America, which is huge. The penetration is amazing. And doing business through WhatsApp and through WhatsApp business, it's something which is, again, it's very easy to explain and very easy to implement, but normally as users, we know to use how to use WhatsApp as users, to relate with people and to relate with family or friends, but not to sell. And it's so easy to explain, and we can do it very quick, not only the Facebook or the Instagram, but also the WhatsApp. So we have a huge opportunity, really, and we can talk further for sure.
We have some work to do. I love it. I love it. Lebo, what are you seeing as some of the opportunities that we need to capitalize on and really get behind?
So I just want to tap into the conversation that Lorena had now around the use of digital and what it actually unlocks and enables, that we use it, but not to sell. And I think it's important also, as we talk about e-commerce and digitization, etc., to also appreciate that digital and technology is actually an enabler. And you have to be clear about what your business is about. So you have to be clear about who are your customers, what are you offering them, what is your value delivery system supporting your value proposition, so how are you going to be organized to do that? And then digital is one of those things. So even as we think about digital, I think sometimes people jump into the digital realm without clarity on what business are they about and what is the value proposition, and how digital has actually made you have to think very clearly about value and has increased your competitive set. But if you're not clear about what is your value proposition and for whom, and why would people choose you and how you're going to make money, this digital is going to be this gold coin that you're constantly chasing, and you're never going to get right because those fundamentals haven't been answered. So I think it's important just to also frame that often people go into a digital space and don't have the outcome, or the in marketing speak they talk about what's the word I'm looking for? a call to action very clearly. What do you want people to do when they're in that space, right? Because you actually haven't thought about how is this enabling my business. You thought this is the business, which it actually isn't. It's an enabler. So, but just to also touch on this thing around where the opportunities are, I think there's a report that was done by the World Bank on women in trade, and they talk about 3 things that are great opportunities, and because our space is really around trade and that are going to make a rise in trade, and it's about this rise in services and servicification they talk about. So I think e-commerce lends itself very much and very well to services and being able to transact on the digital platform, selling and engaging in services. But I think for women particularly, I think many women find themselves in those kind of industries anyway. So I think there'll be a big growth in that. And I think also where the opportunities also lie, particularly for women, is linking to this theme around collaboration. I think one of the things that we have also found as an organization is called Oya Foods, and Oya Foods focuses on elevating African food, but also around making sure that we are able to give women farmers access to market. And in that, we're trying to prove that we can build the largest women-owned value chain across the board. So at some point in time, I'll find somebody who makes bottles and olive oil, because that's what we want to make sure that we can do. But I think this environment has really made us focus on thinking about who else can I collaborate with in this value chain, as I want to be able to provide a holistic service to the market. And the digital platform, because we're all in the space, the market is in our computer now and on our phones. We can't go anywhere. And so we have to think very creatively around who can I work with, who can I collaborate with, what other part of the value chain can I tap into so that I can be able to provide a compelling value proposition to the market. So I think for me, it's around those areas. It's around saying there's services lend themselves very much into the space of digital transacting. And then secondly, I think there's a great opportunity for people to look around the value chain and say, how else can we participate in that value chain, and who can we collaborate with? And I think we're now talking to people that we never thought we'd be talking to. We've got access to markets that we never thought we would have to. And I think it allows us to have stronger propositions and partnerships that we never thought we would have in order to be able to deliver. It's borderless now, and we can actually collaborate much strongly as women, I think, to be part of resilient value chains, which we are not. COVID showed very much that because women are not part of resilient value chains, they suffered the most. They were on the periphery. And I think we have the opportunity now with digital, with this COVID pandemic, to actually rectify that. Yeah.
That's an amazing call to action. I love it. I love it. And I think it gives us absolutely something to think about. You know, you hit on something very important. Like, how do we take advantage of those blind spots for some, because not for all, right? There's certain things that we've all seen, but how do we take advantage of those lessons to really do something about, to address those gaps and create new opportunities? Thank you. Khulan, I'm going to turn to you again in your role as entrepreneur, ecosystem builder, as well as the other 2 panelists also share, an advocate and advisor, you know, to Zoe's point, sharing some of your trajectory. What would you like to see happen so there are more opportunities and we're able to include more women entrepreneurs in this digital transformation and the opportunity that this future holds?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, especially for us, because we are in this environment that is not ready enough, and because we are doing so much that is, you know, like one of its kind or the first ever, or always challenges like that. I really do believe that, again, just like the other 2 were saying, it's a lot about, I think, connecting the dots, you know, because on the one hand, you have all these amazing SMEs that have fear, that have no idea, you know, what to do. But then on the other hand, you have all these amazing platforms that are newly rising. Then you have obviously the government, etc. So there's a lot of, I think, connecting the, there's importance of connecting the dots. So I think that is why I really wanted to do also this advocacy advisory role, because I do see from kind of the bird's eye view that it's just really about connecting the dots. So lately, I'm thinking about the importance of databases, especially, you know, making sure that the SMEs are found, so that the entrepreneurs are found, that the amazing brands are found. Because once you kind of have this database, it really enables whoever, you know, wants to connect to each other, all the different stakeholders, to actually move along, work together, and then just do what they need to do. But I do see, I get Lebo's point as well, especially in the countryside in Mongolia. Mongolia is really amazing in terms of access. So almost, I think we are by far one of the best countries in Asia in terms of access. I think almost in terms of Facebook, almost everybody has like 2 Facebook accounts for whatever reason, especially, you know, doing random things. But then on the other hand, it's really, okay, then you do have this access, you know how to use everything, but then who's going to find you and how are you going to find everybody else? So I do see a big gap, and on the other hand, a big opportunity in terms of really creating a database, creating a, you know, some kind of platform where we can just connect all these amazing SMEs to various kind of different stakeholders. So in Mongolia, especially, I do see that that is very, very important. So I really want to work on that. And I do believe that, especially in this digital transformation, we just should not leave out anybody. You know, we definitely need to give SMEs, startups, entrepreneurs, especially women, especially people in more marginalized areas, you know, far off in the countryside, the opportunity to actually connect with us. So that is, I think, one of the key things that I really want to focus on, especially in the coming years, making sure that everybody is connected, but not just connected, but, you know, rightfully connected, so that we don't lose any time.
So inspiring, Khulan. And I see there's a message from another VD Grow Fellow, from Imelda Echavarria. She asks, have you thought of using the women-owned business logo to sell more on social media, and how to approach a certificate along those lines with e-commerce? And that can go to you or any of the other 2 panelists as well. I mean, just that thought of a global logo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously a logo like this is important. For example, we just a month ago were featured as Forbes Asia 100 companies to watch that are changing the world. And that was amazing. So they asked us if we want to use that logo, right? But then I think, as Lebo was saying, or Lorena previously, instead of just, you know, kind of shallowly trying to use something and then moving forward in this whole digital world, I think it's also very, very important to really take a step back and think about, what's your vision, what's your value proposition, who are your customers, what kind of voice you have to use. For example, let's say social media. If you really want to target the Generation Z, then you have to have a different tone, a different voice, possibly not use Instagram, maybe move into Snapchat, TikTok, you know, whatever is happening now. Or if you want to, I don't know, you know, target the older generation, then you have to have a different voice, etc. So I think, even though the digital transformation makes it easier for you to get to your customers, you still have to understand the basic values and the fundamentals of your business and who you want to target to. Because at the end of the day, you don't need to sell to everybody, but you have to understand who's your key customers, what is your value proposition, and how you can effectively and in the fastest way reach those people, because you don't want to lose time. You don't want to spend all your day making random posts and nobody's actually going to read it, right? So I think it really is all about taking it back to your fundamentals, making sure you understand your whole branding, your whole value proposition, your mission, vision, everything is on track. And then it's going to make it much easier to actually target your customer through e-commerce.
What an incredibly rich conversation we've had. And unfortunately, time has marched on so quickly. We're almost the end of our hour. So I'd like to quickly summarize. First of all, thank you so much, Lebo, Khulan, and Lorena, for such fabulous insights. I've written a long little list here of kind of key takeaways. So just to sort of summarize them very quickly, the one that you just touched on, Khulan, that your target market is key. And when you're thinking about who you're looking at, whether it's Gen Z versus older generations, it's critical, just thinking about, I can't even imagine thinking about sort of sales using TikTok versus a traditional old website, and then one of the ideas I loved from you, Lorena, was the idea of leveraging WhatsApp in regions outside of Latin America for business. And then the great opportunity to leverage any social media, sort of Facebook and Instagram, etc., and thinking about how one does that, and how do you need to also have the bandwidth to be able to respond, as you were saying, Khulan, to sort of inquiries that are coming through your social channels. And then learning from each other, love that idea. And then also doing the research, there is so much that's available out there. Collaborating with others is critical. We're seeing that more and more. And whether that's large organizations, multinationals, etc., all the way through to collaborating with your neighbor or your Vital Voices network sisters who may be running similar businesses in different parts of the world, and you can share best practice. I love the idea. I think, Lorena, you talked about the measure as you go along so that you can see what's succeeding and what is not. And then I think a very key piece that I've heard from all three of you is the idea of being able to, as an individual or as an entrepreneur, help in the development of the market, of the ecosystem, and of the infrastructure. So beyond your own business, sort of looking at that bigger picture. So I think those are some of the things that I've taken away from this. Just thank you very much. Thank you to each of you for spending your time with us. Thank you to my fabulous Eugenia for co-presenting with us, and then also Jackie and Abby, who have put this whole gathering together. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to continuing this conversation and continuing to learn from you and each other. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.